Welcome to the Goal Podcast, news and commentary from Gun Owners Action League, your leading voice for the Massachusetts gun owner.
I'm Garrett, across the table, well, next to Jeff this time. We're on location at Cape Gunworks in Hyannis with the man himself, Toby Leary, the boss over here. Also with us, we got Mike Harris. Mike Harris.
Hey.
Goals Director of Public Policy. Welcome, fellas.
Thank you for having me, and I'm glad you came down. Thanks for making the trip.
This place is great. I've never been here before.
No?
Nope.
That's awesome.
This is my first time.
Cool.
It's like Candyland.
Lost my Cape Gunworks virginity.
What was your first impression when you walked in the door?
Oh, I was blown away. It's awesome. This is like a really well laid out place. You know? It looks like an actual, like some actual thought went into, you know what I mean? That's not a knock on other gun stores or anything, but it's like really professionally laid out and really nice place all around.
There's a certain charm to the
converted auto body shop.
Yeah,
you know?
but you know, when you come to a place like this, you're like, all right, this is pro. This is professional
it's the next
stuff.
level.
Purpose built.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right on. So, so tell us about the building before we get too deep into stuff. You run this place. You got the building. You have a range here.
Yeah.
Pro shop, archery center.
Yeah, we have 20,000 square feet of Second Amendment goodness under one roof. And we have 15 lanes, 2 bays. One bay has 7 lanes. The other one has 8. And we are rated for pistol, rifle, and shotgun, so up to 50 BMG. And we used to shoot a lot of 50 BMG, but we've pumped the brakes on that after spending $7,000 to replace back shells.
Oh,
Yeah. But it was fun while it lasted, let's put it that way.
I bet it was.
So when they tell you it's rated for 50 BMG, it is. However, there's a big asterisk and a big but there that, you will be replacing your back shells quicker than if you don't shoot 50.
Is that like when a gun safe says it holds 14 guns and you really get about 8 of them in there?
That's exactly.
If you do it just right.
Except it has bigger financial implications.
Oh, for
I
sure.
guess buying a second
probably
shell,
true.
buying a second safe is gonna hit you in the wallet. But anyway, we have a huge classroom. We have a secondary training room, which we're taking full advantage of right now. And we also have archery range and pro shop there. Full time gunsmith and about 5,000 square feet of pro shop with everything you need for whatever gun you can buy in Massachusetts. So
yeah, we'll get to that momentarily.
Oh boy.
So we have a good selection. Right now, actually, we have more inventory than we've had in probably 3 or 4 years, maybe ever in the
Things
history.
starting to pick
That's
up
cool.
finally, and then
Things picked up obviously as of COVID and shut down and lockdown, and you put you out of business time and all that, and so reopened, and then we were able, fortunately, because of the business that we had run for the prior 6-7 years, that we were on good terms with vendors and distributors and manufacturers, so we were able to continually get product. And then
that's good.
Yeah.
And
so now we also made not a huge mistake, but did the typical, this is never going to change in our ordering practices. So now we're sitting on a lot of inventory, but things have changed.
For now, it could be a good thing.
Yeah. And things have changed a little bit and slowed down just a little. Like summer used to always be our slowest time of year. And so we're a little bit of a return to 2019 in that regard, but it's, to be expected. So we're not worried about it, that, this is going to be a strong third and fourth quarter, I think, in Massachusetts, especially with everything coming down the pipeline.
Yeah,
So,
with all that's going on right now.
yeah.
Excellent. Mike,
Yes, sir.
Goals Director of Public Policy. You've been busy the last few weeks.
Oh boy. And how?
What's doing at the office, man?
Just trying to respond to people and get the message out and just try and keep my head above water. I have never had more phone calls and emails in my life. My phone was off the hook the other day. Usually it's John getting all the phone calls,
all the questions and so forth.
Yeah. And I can hear him. He's right across the hall. I can always hear his phone ring. And last week, he poked his head out and was giving me the finger guns, like, it's your turn now. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been
pal?
It's been a lot, but I mean, that's good. That means people are awake and they're active and they're paying attention to it.
It's good stuff.
So, yeah.
Well, the update on 4220 now is that they're having cclosed door sessions today as we're recording it. So this is Monday what day is it?
Today is
Monday the 17th.
Yeah. So 4420, right? This is what everybody wants to hear about it right now.
So the
HD 4420.
Yeah. So the speaker and Rep Day are basically lobbying the members today. That's what they're doing. They're trying to sell the bill to the House members. So I think they're doing it by division. I think the first 2 divisions are today, which includes the Republican caucus, and then
25 of them.
Yeah, literally. And then the Division 3 and 4 are tomorrow, I think is what they're doing. But, stuff squeaks out and leaks and, all that stuff. So we haven't really been hearing a ton of what's going on the ground. A couple of reps have reached out and said, like, hey, this is, they're trying to sell this thing and try to get it to go through before August.
Yeah, before the break, right?
Yeah. So, so the legislature takes the month of August off. The entire legislature, I'd
like to just take a month off.
It's called, it's the August recess, and so they're not technically ever in formal session, but they will be in informal session every 72 hours per the Massachusetts Constitution. Yeah. So there'll be an informal session. So one of the things we've been telling people is if one member of the legislature that is present at an informal session objects to something that's going on during that informal session, it's tabled for the next formal session.
That is so critical. That's huge. Yeah. So one person, it only takes one person
so even
to shut it down.
Yeah. So a lot of times what they use informal session for is like minor administrative stuff or
major sweeping overhaul of gun laws, stuff like that.
Well, I said usually. So they'll do local bills and things that, like, we're naming a new bridge. We're naming a bridge after World War II vets, stuff like that.
Starting a new state cookie.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of stuff moves through in informal session, quote unquote. Formal session is what you think of when you think of a legislative session. All of the reps and senators in their seats talking and voting on things and taking roll call votes and all that stuff. That's a formal session. So formal session is usually reserved for the controversial stuff or
the big stuff
or financial things, stuff like that. Yeah, literally the big stuff. That's the best way to describe it. It's,
supposedly.
Yeah, you know it when you see it, that kind of a thing. Yeah. But they can move bills and do administrative things at informal session, even if they're controversial. So this bill was sent to, the House Committee on Rules sent their recommendation to the Joint Committee on Rules to send this bill to the Joint Committee on the Judiciary. Yeah. That happened in informal session. So just we're saying it.
Yeah, and that happened within like hours of it being filed,
just because nobody objected to it.
Yeah.
What we could have done if we'd known it was coming was have whoever was going to be in the room that is opposed to the bill.
Yeah, making a
say
objection.
No. Yeah. And they could have stopped that report from.
So dwell on that for a second. Had we known about it, this whole thing has been like a cloak and dagger thing since the beginning, right? It dropped suddenly. There's no warning. Nobody's letting us know anything. And they're trying to like sneak it through with these backdoor sessions, with all this informal stuff. It's like they're trying to sneak it through so that they can ram it through before the break.
Yeah.
And before anybody has a chance to object.
Exactly. Yeah. So this closed door meeting stuff that's happening right now, it sounds a lot more insidious than it really is, I guess, not to defend the legislature's actions, but it's really a lobby session where the House, where the Speaker and the Committee on the Judiciary is trying to sell it to the members.
Trying to whip up support for them.
That's really what it is.
No, I get it. In one sense, I get that.
The problem is they're lying about what's
Yes,
in the bill
they're
to the
lying
members.
to the members about what the bill. Yeah,
Yeah.
This
right.
is
They're
where
like,
they
oh, this
tell-
is nothing but ghost guns and live fire training. This is, you don't have to worry about this.
Here's 140 pages. Bet you won't read it before August.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that kind of a thing. You get a month to go through and pick this thing apart. There's so much stuff in here that you don't think about the unintended consequences. This is my favorite one that I've been like really upset about because it's going to affect not just FFLs but anybody who wants to purchase anything.
Yeah.
Is that common carriers are not given an exception
That one is
to storage rules.
critical. Yeah.
That is humongous. That is going to put
retailers
FFLs out of business.
Yeah.
And it's a backdoor way to stop people from buying guns.
That's one of the
literally what it
things I
is.
get into it with people over this. It's
wild.
like, let them stack up on my door. We'll see. It's like, that's not the point. They're never going to come to your house and
No.
take your guns away. All they have to do is turn off the taps, right? That's it. Shut
And this
down
is-
retailers, shut down supply lines.
And that's
all they
the
gotta do.
And that's the insidious part of this bill is there's a whole bunch of stuff like that in there.
Yeah.
Well, and the representatives have the same issue that we have first looking at the bill. Is so much of the bill is strike this word, add that word, go
Yeah.
to line 76.
Yeah,
of
nobody
this
can read the
subsection.
thing.
So
On-
they're looking at the same thing we are and just going,
And that's stacked up on top of the fact that they also are changing a lot of the references in the law.
Yes.
And then referring back and self-referencing within the bill. So instead of referencing the old or the current version of the law, their references go back to
the way it used to be.
No,
or the way,
it goes
the way
back.
It is like,
No, it goes back to, it references the bill's citations. So they're like,
Oh.
we changed this
Yeah.
section to this number section, and then a later section of the bill will reference the new citation.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
yeah.
So
Well, that's how our assault weapons ban is written.
yeah, so it's really, really weird.
Yeah.
The way that they put this thing
reference a
together.
20-year-old
it's-
law, 30-year-old
yeah.
law that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, I'm not even
Reference
saying
that.
that. It
Yeah.
references itself.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at the bill, you have to construct what in order to understand later sections of the bill, you have to have in your mind a construction of the law as laid out in the bill. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like you're
You have
playing
to
a-
understand what it says.
You have to know what the bill's going to do to understand how
Yes.
it's even changing within the bill.
Right. So it's like people who can like have a game of chess with each other in their heads without a board in front of them.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of stuff. You're like,
But according
yeah,
to
it's
Michael
wild.
Day, it's clearing everything up.
Oh yeah,
It's
making it
modernizing.
easier.
Modernizing.
All you got to do is read the bill,
Yeah.
and you'll see that it simplifies everything.
That's right. Everything is
Well, the
simpler.
last representative
wild.
I called, they basically said that. I said, you got to go and just read what Gold put up on the website. This is what it's going to turn into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we're the experts on what these laws actually mean.
Right. We're not
Please
making
just
this
read.
up.
We're not lying.
Well, you know
Right.
what?
It's right
this
there.
You know what I was most horrified about was when I called Michael Day's office. Patrick, the aide that answered the phone, had no idea that this actually banned an entire group of guns.
You're kidding me.
No,
You didn't know?
No idea. In fact,
What?
he started to get a little bit defensive and say, "Well, what gun won't you be able to sell that you can now?"
All of them.
All
Yeah.
of them.
And so I said, "Are you kidding me? Like, are you serious?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "There's entire categories of guns that I can't sell
Yeah.
if this bill passes that I can sell now." And he says, "Do me a favor, send us an email and list the guns that you won't be able to sell if this bill passes." And I said, "Oh,
I don't
yeah,
have
okay."
to.
And at first I was kind of, so taken aback that he didn't know about this portion of the bill that I said I took his work seriously and I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And then I sat down at the computer and I went to type what guns I won't be able to sell, and I realized the guns that I will be able to sell is a shorter list.
Yeah.
So I came up with like the M1A, like the California version of the M1A.
Yeah.
I came up with the Ruger PC carbine in the Monte Carlo stock configuration.
All right.
I came up with a Ruger Mini 14 in the Monte Carlo stock, no threaded muzzle version. And then I was about done. I'm like, what am I
what I
missing
can
here?
sell now. Yeah.
This is what I can sell if this bill passes.
Everything else is
either enumerated
Yep.
or banned by category or banned by similarity or banned by quote unquote evil features,
Feature
which
test,
they added a whole list of evil features.
Yeah, and now it's a single feature test now.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that they didn't know what it was going to do and what it was going to ban, I think kind of reinforces the idea that Michael Day's office didn't write this either.
Oh no, the moms
I think
wrote
this was this last year was the Lawyers for Every Town, the moms
Giffords.
Yep.
writing
Give
the
us
whole bill
everything you
together,
want.
packaging it up and saying, here, put out the dog and pony show,
Yeah.
make everyone think that you cared, you have the box checked off, here's your bill spoon-fed for you.
Yeah, there was definitely a lobbyist group that had this written, and they actually went to them and said, if you could have everything you wanted, everything you ever dreamed up,
Short of
Put it in this
short of
bill.
an outright ban of all firearms.
right, right, which if
This is approaching an outright
It's
ban,
open-
but it's not the language that says we're banning everything.
right, and they did that smartly because they know that if it just said, oh, we're reversing the Second Amendment,
right.
1776 revisited would have happened. So instead, they put all this smart gun technology in reference to handguns.
Oh, yeah, right.
They put the single feature test in the semi-automatic rifle category. So the way I see it is, if you were ever to try to comply, which would be ridiculous, you'd be able to legally sell pump-action shotguns, bolt-action rifles, and
That's about it.
I
Well, that's what they
and the
want.
3 semi-automatic rifles that I mentioned. If I haven't been able to find out how I'm wrong in that deduction of reading this bill, and if you're okay with that, then you were never okay with the Second Amendment, and you don't believe in the right to keep and bear arms. You don't believe in rights, enumerated rights. The second thing I found that was extremely interesting by contacting Michael Day's office was it led me to the legislature page where it has his bio, and he served as a trial lawyer or defense lawyer for Mintz Levin for 10 years.
Yeah.
The guy's a practicing attorney.
Yeah, but guess what his area of expertise was? And the irony here is incredible.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're going to
He's
say.
a civil defense
Civil rights lawyer.
civil rights advocate.
Yeah.
Wow.
Civil rights and civil liberties is his area
Wow.
of expertise.
Some of them.
Yeah, right. Not the ones he doesn't like, apparently.
So that led me down the rabbit hole to Google civil rights, which led me to a .gov page that said civil rights are any human right that is protected by the United States Constitution.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? So I don't think Michael Day can claim in his bio that he is a civil rights advocate and simultaneously walk into the hall that he calls his place of business and raise his right hand and swear an oath to uphold the Constitution, including the Massachusetts state constitution, against all enemies, both foreign and domestic, and then introduce Gunpocalypse 2023, which eviscerates your right to keep and bear arms.
Everything.
And in my opinion, that's malfeasance at the purest definition of the word. In other words, a man who is sworn to uphold the Constitution then proceeds to dismantle it, even though he doesn't have the constitutional authority to do so. And that is exactly what he's doing. There's no provision in the Constitution that gives him the right to infringe in the way that he is on any provision of the Second Amendment in the way that he has.
We're talking about he's defending us from a rogue Supreme Court. Toby.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And
believe that?
technology.
Yeah.
Well, and you know he's full of
Believe
it
that
because
quote?
he had to lie to everybody to get here.
And which brings up another interesting talking point to me. Because while I was doing some research on the Mass Legislature website, I just happened to look at some of the pending constitutional amendments that they are proposing for Massachusetts. And one of them is overwhelmingly supported by the Mass legislatures, the Senate and the House. They would like to change their oath of office from and replace the word swear to affirm and take out "so help me God" and put in "under the pains and penalty of perjury," which makes total sense when you think about it, because here's a group of people that lie for a living and know that the pains and penalty of perjury is probably something that gets a great laugh when they're all out together raising a glass after an expensive meal on the taxpayer dime.
Right.
The pains and penalty of perjury probably creates belly laughs from the soul, from the very core of their being, because they know that there is no pain and no penalty of them performing their pejorious duties as they see fit. They lie for a living, and they know that they're not going to have any pain or penalty for their pejorious actions.
They're like, ha, ha, ha. And then I told him I was glad to hear from him.
Well, it's a zero-risk game for them, because if the law gets shut down as unconstitutional, they get to throw their hands up and say it's everybody else's fault.
Tried.
Yep. It's the rogue Supreme Court. It's the rubes that own the guns. It's the gun lobby that owns everybody, even though the anti-gun lobby spends 5-6 times the money.
Way more
than our side does.
I wish the NRA was the boogeyman that they think they are.
Right? That they make right.
God.
If the NRA can snap their fingers and Congress falls in line. It's like, boy, our lives would be a hell of a lot easier if that was true.
Way to take away agency, the agency of legislators, right? Like they take away their own agency. They're like, oh, they're bought and paid for by the NRA. It's like, you don't think that there's some people up there that actually believe in the Constitution and believe in these things?
They can't actually possibly be.
They can't actually believe in this stuff. That's crazy.
So I got interviewed on Saturday morning by a local Cape Cod Times journalist, and I use that word lightly.
Yeah, I was going to say you use that loosely.
Blogger.
But
don't insult the man.
The funny thing is,
calling him a journalist.
He got very indignant when it came to the subject of quote unquote ghost guns. And my first statement to him was, the buzzword of ghost guns is a media narrative that
just like assault weapon.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a political term.
And I said, you know who went after ghost guns? King George III, when he said, go get the colonist guns and go get the powder and go get the shot, because those were largely unserialized weapons. They all were until
1968. They were all
there was a couple of companies that serialized guns very, very early, and it was for production reasons. It was for their own.
It wasn't for registration reasons.
Exactly.
It was to match parts.
It wasn't to meet government regulations. It was to make production easier. And we all know that Europe has been a serialization. I mean, they serialize almost every part of a gun. But anyway, so there was, but even if they were serialized, they were all ghost guns because there was no registry.
The
government had no idea they were in whose possession, what, and how many they had, and whatever. So I said, ghost guns, quote unquote, have been in our nation's history since before we were a nation, and all this talk about ghost guns is trying to complete the work of King George III when he said, go round up the guns that the colonists had. We all know what happened there. It created and produced the greatest country on planet Earth in the history of planet Earth. And the fact of the matter is, if you want to go down that road, learn some history, number one. Number two, all a ghost gun is a gun that my government doesn't know exists. And I said, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to worry about me. You don't have to worry about me. What you have to worry about is the scumbag criminal, the psycho, and the evil intended person. And the problem with our society is we keep letting those people out on the streets to recommit and reoffend.
Plead down gun charges,
but you want to come after me because I might have a gun that government doesn't know about? No, that's not a thing. There's nothing nefarious about me owning a gun that government doesn't know about.
Well, that goes to one of the bigger points about 4420 to me. in 141 pages, there is not a single goddamn word about increasing penalties for felonies, about going after repeat offenders.
Yeah, there
nothing
is.
like that.
Yeah, there is.
Well, it's about
all about making us
right. It's
us
about
felons.
making us into felons.
There's plenty of that.
Right. There's nothing.
They're just looking at the wrong group.
There's nothing in there about dealing with actual criminals. They just want to make more criminals out of those of us who are peaceable people.
And they kind of don't even stop to think about how much they say, oh, it's so easy to get a gun and it's so easy to make one on your own. So those are the people I say, well, then why should I follow any of these laws? Arrest me for whatever you want, as according to you, I can get a gun tomorrow anyway.
Yeah. And
by the Massachusetts' own kind of anecdotal record, I'll probably get a high five on the way out of the courthouse and, sorry we took up any of your time and just pay us a little bit of money
we'll
and
just
then you're
play
off
that
on
gun
your
charge
way.
down for you, Jeff. Yeah.
Only if you're in the commission of some sort of domestic violence or drug deal. If you're a gun owner who's trying to comply with the law that gets arrested for,
they're going to get you.
Then you're going to get the book thrown at you.
They'll bang you up good.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
And so his response, and he started to get a little angry with my, sentiment. Well, technology has changed, and now with 3D printers and kit guns, you can get stuff through the mail, off the internet, and build a gun. And
my grandfather used to buy guns through the mail.
Right. Yeah.
Used to be able to get them in the Sears Roebuck catalog
for like $125, man.
That was a high-end gun.
There was an insurance company. We had one of them came through the Goal office. It was like an antique. I forget what it was, but it was a little 22. Insurance companies used to come around to like sell insurance to you and like
give it to you
give
as a
your
premium?
kid a little one. No, like here's our name stamped on the side of this gun. It was like advertising.
Yeah.
It was a little pea shooter.
And it Ted Williams model out of the Sears Roebuck back of the Boys Life catalog. You could get the CMP guns shipped right to your door. Still can.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he tried to make the technology argument and say, well, what about 3D? Do you have a 3D printer? I said, you're darn right I do. I have two of them. And, how long does it take you to make a gun? I said, I haven't successfully made one yet. However,
it's not as easy as you think.
I've seen some people make them, and it takes way too long. It takes about 20 hours from start of print until completion, after you rip all the supports and filings, put it in, take it out, test fire it, refile it,
you
get it to
build
fit.
It's not like you push a button and a gun comes out.
And if it's got like if it has like a bubble in it or like an imperfection, it's blown up in your stupid hand.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. I told them that too, that I've seen someone test firing their 3D printed gun. They got about 3 shots until the handle fell off and they were gripping the magazine. And I said, the problem is it takes too long. I said, why do I have to wait 20 hours? I want to wait 5 minutes and have a gun that's as good as a production gun coming off, the assembly line from any major manufacturer.
Yeah.
And that would be something that would get me excited and get me, talking about. And he said, well, aren't you afraid as a businessman about technology, putting you out of business?
The biggest straw man argument ever.
Yeah.
And I said, no, because technology is always going to progress. And if we don't keep up with the evolution of technology and the change in technology, then we go out of business anyway. We get to all go home. So the point of the matter is you adapt with technology. If I was in the,
record stores became iTunes.
Right. Yeah.
Like
right.
iTunes became Spotify. Like it's
if I was in the carrier pigeon business, I would have,
you'd be extinct.
The lamplighters, the icemen.
I would have been really hungry.
But it's and I also I'm not making fun of anybody, but like the guys who spend all this time like tinkering with their 3D printer, like getting the molds right and doing all this, they're nerds.
Right.
Like you're not going after like the hardcore criminals. You're cracking down on guys who are like, oh, I bet I could if I change it to this kind of polymer, I could get off this many shots. And it's not to be a jerk, but like there's nerds with all this kind of stuff. That's what's awesome about it.
Do it because it's cool to do that kind of stuff, not because you want to go knock over a packy.
You just want to be an amateur engineer. Yeah. Plus, it's a lot easier to get a gun, scratch the friggin' serial number off of it, and use that. Right. That's way easier.
Well, no, because the criminal looks at the gun and says, this doesn't have a serial number. That's illegal. I can't use this to knock over this. So they'll...
But that's also the
curse
other,
is foiled again.
and that's
But either way,
and that's the other side of the ghost gun argument is the
Who are
fighting
you
over
gonna-
over the definition of it. Is that a ghost gun scratching the serial number off of something?
It
Is
gets counted. Remember, we had this discussion, 2 years ago? There was a report or
thing.
something from the FBI, and they like folded in all of the scratched off serial numbers in as ghost guns. Like,
Sorry, Jeff. I
yeah,
didn't mean
they
to cut
just
you off.
they classified ghost guns as just any gun without a serial number.
Yeah, including
so whether it had
defaced.
been defaced or not. But they talk about this ghost gun issue, and people aren't 3D printing guns. Like the amount of time, effort, materials that go into making a functional firearm.
Oh my God! It's so much more than the frame.
You're just going to go and you're not going to beat what's coming out of the factory at the price point they're coming out.
No,
at.
Right.
no.
You're not
You
gonna,
don't want to, and that's
you're not
the
going to
point.
3D print a gun that's going to outperform an M&P Shield for $350.
You're not going to 3D print a gun that's going to outperform a High Point.
Yeah.
Well,
For Christ's sakes, man.
No, it's true.
Well, you know that the High Point carbine made the assault weapons
It
list,
sure
right?
did.
Yeah.
So did Kel-Tec
Little
Sub
old
2K,
High
man.
Point.
And
That was the High Point was the only company excited to be on the list.
now if they
We're in the big time now.
and we hosted a regional gun makers match here at Cape Gun Works.
Yeah,
I've been down here.
our own
Yeah.
John Green was
Yeah.
here.
John Green
Green
came.
was here.
We had the Saturday. Everyone kind of, if you didn't have your own nefarious ways of making guns, you could make one of the kit guns that we had or you had or whatever, and you got your gun voted on as what the coolest gun of the match was and who performed the best and which gun performed the best, and so there were a bunch of awards at the end. But what was interesting was one guy built a SIG 320 basically out of he got it was a base to a street lamp, so it was this thick piece of
Okay.
high carbon steel, and he machined it into this 320 SIG 320.
Whoa.
It was gorgeous.
I
But
bet.
he machined it out of a solid billet piece of cobalt steel.
That's cool.
Wow.
And blued it and checkered it and
Oh my God.
You know,
That's
that was
awesome.
awesome.
and then he brought his whole collection of other guns that he built similarly. And we're like, oh my gosh. And this guy works out of his garage. You know what I mean? So he didn't use a kit. He didn't use a 3D printer. He didn't use plans that were downloaded
Right,
from
downloaded, but downloadable codes.
and he didn't use the Ghost Gunner, mill. He just made it by hand. And so, unless you're going to ban Yankee ingenuity or people
You're going to ban a
brain-
skill set.
Well,
right?
I believe the new bill, there's wording in there for anything that is, intended to become a firearm is now considered a partial
so
frame
the
receiver.
base of a street lamp is now a,
Yeah, so if you sell a raw block of
0%.
aluminum,
it's a
if you sell a
0%
raw
receiver.
block of aluminum marketed as 0% AR-15
A negative
lower,
80%.
that would have to be sold as a firearm. But if you sold a brick of aluminum and you said, "Hey, here's a brick of aluminum for
Go do what you want with it.
for any reason," that's totally fine. But they're saying that it's precognitive crime or whatever.
Yeah, it's pre-crime,
Yeah.
like the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pre-crimes unit.
So would the Ludi book be a firearm? What
The book,
the AK
the
guy
book,
built
right,
one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Has the instructions on how to build and stamp
Yeah,
out of
it's
sheet
the
metal and all
Ludi
that stuff.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you, Toby, is looking at now the new requirements for how many pieces, parts, everything that has to be serialized
God.
and registered. And
Thank God you have a
Recorded with the
full-time
state.
gunsmith on staff.
His whole life is going to be serializing crap.
yeah.
so, what do you think that's going to look like as far as has the state provided any guidance on what a new EFA 10 might look like?
Not yet.
No,
Or-
they're not going to do any of that stuff until well after the bill passes.
I guess my point is there's no plan.
Right.
Yeah, right. Of course not.
What do you think that's going to look like should that bill pass? As far as what is a sale going to look like for the guns that you can buy?
So
Right.
first off, what is the bill says that everything that's basically a gun part
Well,
has to be serialized, right? Frame, receiver, the-
upper, lower, and
barrel,
barrel, and
like-
magazine.
and if there's a trigger of like a fire control group,
Yeah, that kind of
that kind of stuff, right?
But so I don't know. I'm not to sidetrack the conversation. Tell me to shut up if I'm taking it in a direction we weren't meaning to. But I'm also kind of a little nervous about like museum pieces and stuff. Like there's a lot of people I know who have
Yeah, Jim said that last time. He's like, I got a 90-year-old, Mauser or something like that.
You're gonna
I'm
make
going
me-
to put a serial number on that.
this gun.
Hell
This
no.
gun was on the beaches of Normandy.
Yeah, and I'm
you're
gonna-
gonna make me. You're gonna make
Right.
me scratch and ruin this piece of history. Like
So I can put a freaking
shut your face.
Massachusetts and serial. Yeah.
Go
That's
away.
nuts.
So to answer your question, Jeff, if you were to comply with this bill, that's really the
You should start everything with that,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Hey,
that's red.
I firmly
There's like three
believe
layers
and,
to-
and
to
say
all of it.
compliance is voluntary.
Yeah.
Consequences may come, but it's entirely voluntary to comply with the law.
so.
Yeah.
So I will not comply with this in any way, shape, or form as written, even a deeply amended version of this gun. I feel like we have complied with unconstitutional laws for far too
way
long.
too long.
And this is this goes way too far. And this is a crossing of the line in the sand that I put in, back in 2016 when Maura Healey did her thing.
Yeah. Yep.
And we all kind of went, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then every lawyer I know said, if you want to stay out of jail, comply, and we'll work it out down the road in the
Right.
courts. So we did. And guess what that has got us?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nowhere.
They aren't happy. They're far more interested in restricting
Yeah.
us.
This is a
more.
this is a Rubicon moment.
Yeah. So at this point, I say, don't comply, period, in any way, shape, or form. If UPS and FedEx won't ship to us, I will get in a vehicle and I will drive to the manufacturer. I'll drive to the distributor
Right on.
and go get it and bring it back. And I'm not going to do anything special with those guns when I bring them back. I'm going to get them from the manufacturer, put them in the car, and drive back. If they want, extra serialization of barrels and magazines, I'm going to say no. It's not going to happen. I'm seriously considering not, at that point, if they do pass this, you're in for a penny, you might as well be in for a pound.
That's just it.
And just say, I am not going to comply
Well,
with
just-
the Maura Healey
right.
edict. I'm not
Forget
going to
it.
comply with the assault weapons ban. I'm not going to
You're
comply
gonna You're
with the
gonna make me a
NFA.
felon. I'm gonna drill a third
Yeah.
hole. I'm gonna start selling oil cans.
Well,
what the hell?
I'm just going to, at this point, say I'm not going to comply with the roster, the edict, the
right.
Attorney General's regulations, because it's
Stay-
all
Like you want to turn me into
unconstitutional.
a felon anyway. So
Right.
what the hell?
Yeah.
And
So-
and the point is, I have been graciously complying because I do believe in being a response. Like, let's put it this way: I believe being in business was more important than being right about a subject.
Yeah.
So, in other words, I could make a big splash and be right and be put out of business and be arrested.
Sure. Get your doors closed.
And be broke and lose my house and lose everything I've ever worked for. The way I see it now is you can pick the way you want to die. You can die through regulation,
Right. Die on your own terms.
or you can die by doing the right thing. But we don't have a choice anymore. They've taken the choice away from a willful compliance with an unconstitutional and unlawful order. And so at this point, I'm like, okay, we're done playing that way. And I'm really hoping and praying that more people, gun owners in Massachusetts will agree. And more importantly, more gun dealers will come on board and say, yeah, you know what, you're right. We're not going to make a legacy business of selling pump action shotguns and bolt action rifles. So therefore, we're not going to comply either. And when I say not comply, I don't mean like the smorgasbord not comply, like I won't comply with this, but I will comply with that, and I won't comply with this, but I will comply with that. I'm just going to say wholesale non-compliance. And if it became a thing where 600 odd gun dealers in Massachusetts all said, no, this is unconstitutional, talk to our lawyer, but we are going to continue.
Yeah.
And I think
No
they'd have
further.
a much harder time than the one idiot like myself dancing on the hill trying to start a movement, right? So we're really at this pivot point, I think, in our state where we can, hang one guy out to dry like myself, or we can rally behind and all say, you know what, this is a line in the sand moment, and we will not comply, period.
No further. No further. Especially since what they're trying to do is the end game anyway. So
Yeah.
So if my gunsmith is here tinkering around and some guy wants a new barrel put on his gun, and now all of a sudden I got to call the Department of Public Safety and say, Mother, may I have a serial number for this guy's barrel that he's going to change and put on his gun? And then we're going to tell you what barrel it is, what the barrel length, who the maker is, what the twist rate, I don't know, what caliber, what everything
what the hell
else.
are you supposed to say?
And then when we get our approval, we grind a serial number in the barrel and put it all together, and then tell them it's done. Like, it's not an NFA item. It's not an item that is restricted in any way, shape, or form. So why on God's green earth am I going to try to comply with that? It would be asinine. And it's a tax on the gun-owning public, which you can't do that on any other constitutionally enumerated right. So therefore, since the poll tax was deemed unconstitutional, obviously the barrel...
All poll taxes should be deemed unconstitutional.
So obviously the serialization of my barrel tax is unconstitutional.
Yeah, and it's important that, like you said, all dealers, because there's typically that contingency of people that they just have the deer rifle, they just have the shotgun for skeet, for trap. This bill comes after everybody. There's no one that this isn't going to touch, and there's no one that shouldn't be offended. Now, I understand that some people aren't into the 3 guns, ARs and pistols and red dots and tack lights and all that stuff.
And that's fine for them. But guess what?
You're not
you're not immune from this.
Your butt's in the same sling that mine is.
Yeah, you can't sit back and go, oh, it's them ARs. Nobody needs them. Guess what? They're coming after your Remingtons too, and your Winchesters, and your,
It's also not about need.
Right.
I want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
We're not a needs-based society.
Nope.
Not how
Never
this
have
works.
been.
Yep.
And getting back to my earlier story with the journalist, quote unquote. I haven't read the article, so I'm not going to cast aspersions on it. But the bottom line is, I asked him. I said, "You're writing an article for a newspaper, right?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "How would you feel if the state of Massachusetts came to you and said, 'Hey, dude, before you release your next article, you got to go to a 4-hour state-mandated class.
That the state's going to decide the curriculum.
You're going to pay someone $100 or $150 for said class. They're going to tell you what you can and can't write about, when you can and can't write about it, and they're going to tell you what is government-mandated speech. And then when you're done with the class, you're going to get a certificate that you can then take down to the local police department, and you can pay another $100 fee and get fingerprinted, photographed, background checked, and
have your address put on file. And,
Yep. Registered with the Department of Criminal
Justice.
Criminal Justice Information Systems.
yes.
But then there's still a list of assault words that you can't use.
Yeah.
Right.
And then,
Certain words can't use.
And then you'll be issued a license for said event that you want to do that will come in 1 to 3 months. And prior to Bruin, it could have been restricted.
Yep.
And also you would have had to publish references. You would have had to give a reason why you want to write.
Why do you want to write an article?
Right. Why do you want to write
What do you
newspaper?
need to write an article
Why do you need to write an article?
And then when you get that license, it's good for 5 years, depending on what your birthday is. And if it expires, you can't continue to write. You can't continue to write articles.
And all the things that you have published, you better take down, because now you're not. you have published material out there without a license.
You're in possession of opinions without a license.
Correct. And I said, "How would that make you feel?" He goes, "Well, when you put it like that, I can kind of see your point."
It's like, kinda. That's exactly the point.
That is exactly the point. When did the Second Amendment become a second-class right to the First Amendment, or to the Fifth Amendment, or to the Fourth Amendment,
or to the 14th? Right.
I said, I don't see any language. In fact, I do see something that says shall not be infringed.
It's the only one that does say it.
Right. And, the whole Second Amendment's not very long. And to write an entire sentence.
You'd think it'd be easier to understand, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And to write an entire sentence that takes up probably a quarter of the characters used in the entire thing that says shall not be infringed.
Right. You could tweet this thing.
What is it, like 28 or 29 words, something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
That's why I like the meme that, they're all sitting together writing it. It's like, do you think we need to add any more? And they're like, no, this is perfectly clear.
It's right. They'd have to be idiots not to understand this.
Well, I like the one that came through with the, if a girl, has a time machine, she goes back in time to see her great-great-grandmother and says, I'm your great-great-granddaughter. And then a guy gets the time machine and he goes back to the founding fathers and shows them the Second Amendment and goes, make it so a 5-year-old can understand it.
be real specific about barrel length and caliber.
Right.
But really, I mean, but think about it. Who is that targeting? That is targeting the underclass, the underprivileged.
Right.
Well, that's why we go on about poll taxes.
For the chosen few that will be able to afford and grease the wheels and pay the right hand in the long run.
That's how
they'll still have
gun licenses started that way.
They'll still have their armed protection. They'll still have their armed security guards at the doors of the State House.
Sure.
It's
F-troop.
It's their lives are worth saving and yours isn't.
And that's who all gun control affects the most is the societies or the groups of people that need it the most, number one, because they live in the most violent areas of the country. So the people in Chicago or, Detroit or, fill in the overrun city of crime. And those are the people that are in the marginalized communities that are affected the most by gun control and that's the history, the racist history of gun control. It is Jim Crow 2.0, and it always affects the people. Look in this state, forget skin color for a second. If somebody has a boyfriend that is threatening them to do them physical harm, which happens all the time.
Sure it does.
And they can't walk into a gun store and walk out with a firearm, and they have a Second Amendment protected right, the right to keep and bear arms, but they can't get it. I had a guy call me yesterday or 2 days ago who got threatened by 3 people in his shop, his place of business. And he was so freaked out. He goes, Toby, I need to think about getting a gun to protect myself. What do I got to do? I'll buy whatever gun you tell me to buy. And I said, did you ever get your license?
Yeah.
I said, you're 3 months away. Take the class this Friday night.
Best
you're
case
3 months
scenario
away.
is 3 months away.
3 months away. Yeah.
3 months away. And I'm like, what is justice delayed is justice denied.
That's right.
The same thing with rights delayed are rights denied. Mm-hmm. And, we have something in this country called, the right to bear arms that was, let me back up. Murdoch v. Pennsylvania, 1943. It was a First Amendment case where somebody was being charged a tax in order to sell religious material in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the Supreme Court ruled that you cannot charge a tax, a fee, sell a license, issue a permit for a constitutionally protected right.
Yes.
And here we are.
And yet here we are.
Yeah, in Massachusetts with people like Michael Day saying, we need to make sure they go through, active shooter training and de-escalation training in 8 hours, including live fire training. No. Murdoch v. Pennsylvania made it very clear. And there's many other supporting.
Heller, McDonald, and Bruin made it pretty clear too, but that doesn't seem to be stopping anybody. Yeah,
this bill flies in the face of 250 plus years of constitutional law, Supreme Court cases. That's the part that I personally find upsetting, is just that it's just such an utter middle finger to the entire thing.
Look, they
there's no part that they didn't wipe their butt with.
Yeah, they pissed in everybody's faces.
Yep.
So where are we now, Mike?
So, they're doing their little selling session today
as we speak. Yeah, we're doing the closed door super secret sessions.
Yeah.
That
I mean, we're not 100% sure yet. We're gonna get in touch with our people and kind of see if we can find out what happened and where things are going. I mean, right now, what is it, 5:30? So they're probably wrapped up by now.
They're across the street at the tavern, right?
Yeah,
congratulating themselves for the great work that they're doing.
Yeah.
At Carry Nation or the 21st Amendment, both. Which is really funny that they're not. This is apropos of nothing. It's just very funny that they're on the different corners of the same street, because one of them, Carry Nation, was a she was not an abolitionist. What is she? A prohibitionist.
Oh.
And then the 21st Amendment repealed
No, it's a
prohibition.
bar.
I thought that was really funny. Yeah, but anyways, so we're gonna get in touch with our people today and tomorrow and kind of see
if we can get some intel about what happened
and where this thing actually stands. If it's gonna get a hearing, if the speaker's gonna try and strong arm the Senate into putting it back into judiciary, or
Can he do that?
You try.
I mean,
he can try anything he wants,
Yeah,
right? But the
I mean, they
Senate
can-
can say,
it's
they
not
can-
like breaking the rules ever bothered them. So I really don't put anything
so
past
here's the funny thing. One of the rules is the ability to suspend the rules.
yeah, we don't want to do that, so we're
So-
not gonna.
That's where we stand. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
And
Well,
the speaker wants this thing done. He wants this bill as it's written.
Well,
So-
as of this morning, there were 30 names as a list of the petitioners.
Yep.
So that's 30 people that have signed on to essentially support this.
Now, most of them
Yeah.
are the usual wingnuts, the people that usually sign on for crap like this when it comes.
Yep.
It's all the people
but
that
some
don't
of them
think
are
for
not.
themselves and just toe the party line. And
Yeah, I'll
Well,
vote
it's
how I'm
people
told.
people who want to make the speaker happy. You know.
Yeah.
yeah, so
I'm trying
you
to
get your
figure
committee
out-
appointment, your paycheck goes up. Don't rock the boat.
Right, I want to
Just
get my
say
committee
yes.
appointment.
And again, what's the risk? If this gets shot down in a Supreme Court decision 10 years from now, hey, you
We
tried.
did what we
and-
could.
For
We
10
did
years, we had the safest state in the country, and then they took it away from us. Yeah, that's what we'll get.
That's always a good one too.
Yeah.
When we were in Greenfield and Michael Day started off his talk with America's strong gun laws makes us one of the safest states in the country. And the funny thing is they like to compare us with the rest of the country, which has the law of averages working in its favor when you have states like Texas and counties like Plano, Texas, which have the highest gun ownership in the country, and like zero crime in Kennesaw, Georgia, and stuff like that. And so, we're right up there with the rest of them, thanks to our good laws. But when you look at New England, we're the most violent state in New England.
In New England,
In New
hands down, and we've got the strongest gun laws
Right.
here.
So I take them to task all the time with that statistic, saying, no, it isn't because of our good gun laws that we have a large, we're a relatively safe state compared to the rest of the country. When you throw in Detroit and, all these other states,
Chicago.
St. Louis and Chicago and Compton and everything else, it skews us, makes us look great. But when you look at Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, which are constitutional carry states,
Yeah. Suddenly
they're
we don't
lovely.
look so great. Yeah.
no.
2 weeks ago, I was in Maine. Gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful. And then I was in Vermont last week. Gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
There's also the safest state in the union is the state that traditionally never passed any gun laws.
Yeah, right.
Vermont,
Weird,
Vermont
huh?
didn't become constitutional carry. They just
Were.
Yeah, right. They've always been.
never restricted it.
Yeah, they've always
It's,
been that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really Jim's story, so I'll paraphrase it. But he was saying, when they published the goal information on the crime rates in Massachusetts, and it was really just hey, here are the raw numbers that we're giving.
Here
by
are
the state.
your numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your own state-generated numbers.
He had a sit down with the Boston Globe editorial board, who had some questions about this paper that he put out, and they said, "Well, where did you get these numbers from? What study is this?" And he goes, "This is just the crime stats from the state of Massachusetts." And they said, "Well, we don't believe them."
So, okay.
It's like, well,
Like,
they're-
I don't believe the state when it says most things either.
yeah.
But
But here it is.
yeah, they said they wouldn't believe it because of essentially who it was coming from.
yeah.
Yeah, and so the part of what I did over the weekend was troll a couple of the accounts like Michael Day and Rep Mariano's office and Karen Spalanka's
Spilka.
how do you say it?
Spilka.
Spilka, thank you. So anyway, the bottom line was Michael Day was upset, if you read like the House News Service article, that politics are involved now with this bill.
Please.
And 2 weeks have gone by, and there are people dying on our streets. Even though we have
Right.
some of the
You know,
best gun laws in America,
Yeah, right.
people
That
are
was
still
supposed-
dying on our streets, so we need to take action. And it's like,
What
okay,
a-
you just
Yeah.
said
What a disingenuous lying sack of crap.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single person in this state, maybe besides Maura Healey herself, that I can't care less about, what they think about.
Yeah.
Well, you just admitted that our strict gun laws aren't working.
Yeah, right.
We're the safest state in the nation, and we're all going to die unless we give them more power.
Right. Except people are dying every day.
Yeah. People are dying even though we have good laws.
Yeah, right.
We need to make them better. Yeah.
If only you weren't allowed to sell, guns that weren't serialized in 4 or 5 different places. If only that were the case, we wouldn't have all that street crime and,
Yeah, and that's basically what I said in the post that I tweeted. I said, and how does restricting peaceful, law-abiding, responsible gun owners of Massachusetts stop that?
Doesn't.
I'll wait.
Yeah.
Oh, then you're just a right-wing gun nut.
Yeah, you're an ammo-sexual crazy person.
Sure.
This is like...
I'm into that now.
Yeah, you must be... Then the assumption is that you must not be educated. You must not be able to read. You probably didn't go to college and all this other stuff.
It's the implication when every law is like a common sense law. By implication, if you don't agree with it, you don't have common sense. Yeah. So,
well, I went to the same law school as most of those legislators, so it's fine.
And yet here you are.
Yeah,
here you are.
We went to the same school.
Well, my son is going this fall. So
Suffolk Law.
No, not the law school, but Michael
Suffolk?
Day was a graduate of UMass Amherst.
Oh, UMass Amherst?
Yeah, so...
that makes sense.
So my son...
that explains a lot.
There's a couple
that
things
explains a lot, yeah.
Username checks out.
And one of the other cool trolling things I was kind of proud of myself that I saw on his Twitter feed was he played one of Warren Zevon's best songs to introduce his kids to lyrical dissonance this morning, and of course it was the
Lawyers,
Excitable Boy. No, it was the
Oh.
Excitable Boy. And so I said, I think you should have played "Send Lawyers, Guns, and Money" for the abomination that you introduced to peaceful citizens in Mass.
Like, just play the Soviet national anthem and then put your cards on the table.
Just save yourself
that's
all the
funny.
trouble. God.
That was another thing that we were talking about earlier. We haven't mentioned this before, but I was thinking it was probably a good idea. If you write a letter to your state rep or your senator, and you feel like doing it, and you have the gumption, post it on your social media or on their social media pages and tag them in it.
Yep.
Just say, hey, I sent this to you the other day.
Focus.
Waiting on a response.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the
Now
Still
we're
waiting to
gonna-
hear from you.
Here's an open letter.
Still waiting to hear from you.
for the amount of keyboard warriors that I see that like to post in the echo chamber. It's like you can just go post that on their page. You know
Yeah.
that,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like, well, then people will downvote me, and it's like
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll be okay.
it's the internet.
So get out, get involved, right? Start making their lives miserable. I know that my state rep does, quote unquote office hours every couple of weeks.
Go to them.
Go to them.
Bring
show
your
up.
friends.
Yep.
Make sure when they get there, there's a line.
Yes.
That's a real disappointing Friday for a legislator.
And they're like, oh man, I was going to be home by noon.
Yep.
Nope.
Little Friday afternoon check-in.
Make their lives miserable. Call, write, email, and don't wait for Goal to produce a form letter.
Because we're not going to do that.
No, there's
do
no
that.
point. There's no point.
Yeah.
Oh, a canned letter gets a canned response.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
become a number on a list.
Not just that,
And
but
it
if you
gets
know anything
filtered out.
about Microsoft Office and Outlook and Excel, all that, you can just create rules and say, hey, when I see these keywords in the subject line, filter it over to this folder, and then they just right-click on the folder and go mark all as read. Hey, we read them all.
Yeah. But
You need to let
How do you
your
think I get through my work
legislators.
emails?
You need to let your legislators know how you feel about the parts of the bill that affect you, right?
And
you're not going to write some 30-page dissertation on
don't
every
do that.
section of the law. There's no point. Tell them
just
what pisses you off about the law that
Exactly.
affects you.
I said this on the video we posted the other day. That had
a
like
couple days ago.
12,000 views, by the way.
Good.
I think it's because FPC reposted it. I was like, oh, yeah. That was like a secret little fist pump for me. But no, the if you're having a hard time figuring out what to write or how to go about doing it, go read the stuff we have on our website. Read the bill if you have the stomach for it, and pick out the parts of the bill that most offend your sensibilities as a free person, and
Everything that
write
says
write down
everything below that
Yeah.
says enact. You know,
right.
yeah.
No, but just pick out like one or two
Yes.
things and just
Yeah.
write how you feel about them and why they are upsetting to you, and then
There's
send that
plenty
along.
of stuff in there. The
Yeah.
AWB, the hunting. I mean, look, there's
Yeah,
enough in
it's
there
huge.
to piss off everybody.
Yeah.
It's a third grade assignment of writing a 5-paragraph
Yeah,
essay.
it's easy. I mean,
10 minutes of your life.
I even,
Right.
to-
I even think
and then
you could,
post it on social media.
if
Yeah.
you get really eager, just send many and break down the different parts.
Oh, yeah.
Do a different
Right.
subject on every email.
I was gonna say the subject line for your email too. I'm like, do we say like don't mention it in the subject so that they'll read it?
So
Like,
they, right?
yeah,
I want to
usually-
talk to you about getting a flag for my father's grave.
Yeah.
And say, yeah.
yeah. Be like, oh, the cute puppies and
Yeah.
kitties bill.
You know the
I wanna-
flag, the red,
I
white,
wanna-
and blue one that you step on all the time? One
Vote
of
for
those,
the
please.
vote for the
HD.
state cookie.
HD.420, brah.
Say, attention, we've been trying to reach you about your car warranty.
That'll definitely get read. All right. Current status of the
Yeah.
bill as of today. We know that it's in
Yep.
super secret meetings in the House.
Yeah,
So the Senate disinclined
yeah.
to
They disagreed with the committee assignment.
okay. So it was filed and sent to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Yep. So the way it works is there's a so the joint committees are made up of two of the House committee of that subject and then the Senate committee of that subject. So the joint
So
committee
the joint
on
committee,
rules is
by definition, joint committee means
right.
both houses.
So it is comprised of the House Committee on Rules and the Senate Committee on Rules. So when a bill gets introduced as a late file, it goes to the Joint Committee on Rules first, where the chamber that introduced it makes the first recommendation of which committee it should go to, and then the other chamber makes a recommendation. Usually they're in concert with each other. They'll say, oh, you recommended this go to Judiciary, we'll send it to Judiciary. Usually that's the way it goes. This time, because these types of bills traditionally go to the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security,
yeah,
the Senate said, what's so special about this bill
that it has to go to
that it
Judiciary.
has to go to Judiciary?
Geez, I wonder who.
And sent it-
right.
runs
Who's
the
the chair of that
Judiciary
committee?
And they sent it to in lieu of sending it where the House wants it, they sent it to the traditional committee that these things go
So
to.
this works.
Not
as
that I
a-
have faith in the Public Safety and Homeland Security committee
Right.
because he is a co-sponsor of this bill as well. Rep. Gonzalez is the chair of
great.
Public Safety, and he is on this list of co-sponsors.
Okay. But
So,
at least it
no faith
represents
there either.
It represents a parting
A little
of
bit
the
of a
ways.
tug.
Yeah.
So historically, this is really weird. What happens in Massachusetts is when there's the same party controlling
Everything in the goddamn world.
all of the branches,
Yeah.
there's a lot of like weird gridlock that doesn't happen when there's a Republican. for
Because
some
everybody's
reason.
jockeying for position.
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of
everybody's
funky.
jockeying for influence.
Yeah, I mean, which is, I don't mean, this isn't like a rainbows and cupcakes conversation.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying this kind of stuff happens more often.
Yeah, you get like weird, almost like
Yeah.
sibling rivalries.
Yeah. So I don't know. It probably doesn't really mean anything, honestly, for really
It's a
breaking
speed
it down.
bump. It's a speed
Yeah.
bump.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it gives us it might give us a little bit of a chance to mount some more of an opposition
Some
than
breathing
we would
room.
have. Yeah.
Breathing room.
I mean, the fact that they're just trying to like just ram this thing through and say like, "Hey, the listening tour was our hearing process, and this is
Yeah.
what we came up with. You're gonna have to live with it." Bye. It's
Yeah.
like, no,
No.
that wasn't an official hearing. That wasn't.
Nope.
That's not the legislative
Didn't follow the
process.
public meeting rules. Didn't.
Yeah.
None of that stuff.
Well,
And you didn't listen.
The legislature is exempt from the public meeting rules, but
Of course they are.
yeah, they're
Of course they
exempt from everything.
Who passed that law?
Oh, I wonder.
Yeah. So
And they're
that's the
exempt from
current status
FOIA.
right now. We're hoping that it'll hit some more stumbling blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of stumbling blocks, several of the Mass Chiefs have come out against this.
Yes, they have.
So this is good.
Yeah.
Because this is a huge burden on them and their departments.
Enormous.
Never mind all the law enforcement carve-outs that are not there, at least not yet. Just the enforcement side of this stuff represents a huge burden on their departments that,
Yeah.
they already can't do licenses right. And now they're going to have to
Well, not right. That I don't know if that's
Okay.
fair. It's
Efficiently.
especially. I don't even know if it's efficiently. I don't want to be too beat up on them too much. You will get like the rogue, not to use Chairman Day's word, but you will get the rogue department every once in a while that doesn't want to issue them. But I think a lot of the smaller departments
They just can't.
with larger populations, they're so overloaded because the process is onerous.
Yeah,
It's a
right.
big
The process, and
Yeah.
that's why Goal has been trying to get the law passed to start the process at the state.
Yep. And if so a lot of departments don't have the staff. Like if one guy goes on vacation, the stack of license applications
it just
gets
builds up.
just that much bigger. So
like 600 licenses.
Yeah. So I'm not going to beat up on the chiefs, on the police departments too much for that. I mean, because it's not really their fault. But like, as opposed to making the process harder, let's try and alleviate some of that burden so that we can get people their license to exercise their civil right faster.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yes, and let's make very clear for everybody listening that we're not talking about being some rah licenses. Licenses are bullcrap. We shouldn't have to have them at all. But if we have to have them at all,
process should be fair
then the
and
process should
speedy.
be fair and right, exactly.
Or if you're going to do a license scheme, here's your license that you get on
I
your
love that it's
16th birthday, and it's
I love that
good
we call it a
until you give
scheme.
us a reason, until you give a legal reason to take it away.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, good forever.
At that point, just don't bother issuing the license.
So a few of the Mass Chiefs have come out. A few towns have come out publicly.
So the Mass Chiefs Association has come out.
Yeah.
Against
association
it. The
has?
association has come out. We've sat with them a couple times in the goal office and gone over some of this stuff. And they looked at it and said, like, holy hell.
What the hell is going? Yeah, right.
So we were kind of excited about that. And then they wrote like a 17-page response to it that criticizes the bill and talks about how difficult it's going to be for them to enforce and how unfair it is to them. I mean, a police officer is not just in danger when they're on duty. There's also a risk when they're off duty.
Sure.
And this would make it harder for them to carry off duty. And that's
Which
a
is funny
problem.
because it makes it harder for me to carry too.
Sure,
And
but I'm
not-
just saying, like, it's the same.
Carve outs aside, what it does is it
Carve-outs
puts them
aside.
in the same boat as we're in.
Yeah,
Which I think is fair, to be perfectly honest.
Sure.
I'm not saying
I don't disagree with you.
I'm
No,
not
no.
saying
We
that.
shouldn't have
coming-
classes as
I'm just saying,
citizens
coming
here.
from their perspective.
Yeah.
I understand. They've enjoyed a two-tier justice system for a long time. And I'm not, this isn't casting aspersions against them. I actually enjoy a two-tier justice system because I am an FFL and carved out of some things like magazine capacity and stuff like that.
And when you say
So-
enjoy, just saying that, you get to do those things,
Right.
not that you enjoy that other people
No,
don't.
exactly. That's a good clarification. Well, I'm actually furious that my wife can't enjoy the same
Well,
protection.
I hope that you enjoy the fact that you can get, larger magazines.
Sure.
Well, I would.
But the point I'm making is that if you're going to make a law, maybe and you say it's in the interest of public safety, then lead from the front.
Yeah,
and say,
right.
okay, smart gun technology is what is going to become the law for everybody else in the state. Why is there a carve out for law enforcement? No, they should have to lead from the front.
Right.
And if you say, well, that's not safe for the police department, then it's not safe for me.
Right.
So
this gun is so dangerous and doesn't belong on our streets, but the cops can have them. That's cool.
Right.
That's cool.
And
Well, it's a duty rifle then.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right. Yeah, we learned that when
Patrol rifle, that's what it is,
that rifle got stolen
Yeah.
out of the cruiser. It was a patrol rifle when they have it. When it's
Until-
in my safe, then it's an assault weapon.
Right.
Well, once the window broke and it crossed through that plane into the open air and
Now it's an
in
assault
somebody
weapon.
else's hands, it becomes an assault weapon. Yeah.
Now, I wonder if that person's going to have to write up on their next license renewal, yes, I have lost a firearm. I definitely would not want to have that conversation with my boss the next day.
yeah.
All right, so that's the current status of the
Yeah.
bill. So we wait, see. Well, we're not waiting and seeing. We're being,
proactive.
we're being very proactive.
Doing everything we
Folks
can.
at Goal, you guys are doing a killer job.
We're
Burning the
trying.
midnight oil, releasing updates like every other day, which is fantastic. Keep in contact with our people in the State House,
Mm-hmm.
such as they are. You guys are, talking to the Mass Chiefs,
Everyone.
rallying support. But again, we got to do this is the preachy part of the show, right? Every single person that listens to this has got to get involved. This is, like you said, this is the Rubicon moment. Yep. You don't do it now, you may as well turn your guns in and stay at home, because that's what's coming if you don't if you don't get the shot down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's it. We can do the mantra, join Goal, donate, get involved, And I've had this discussion too. It's like money's great. The organization can always use member support money, but what we need are loud people right now.
Loud people. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Use your feet, use your mouths, that's where we are.
We've been saying in the shop, fourfold approach. Number one, send an email. Number two, write an actual letter. Number three, make a phone call. And number four, troll their social media.
Absolutely.
And post on your own social media. The social media part will get seen by people other than the staff of the legislator.
Right.
So
right. Yeah, that's not just right. Exactly.
And that's the stuff that can get
Social
shared
media,
and get liked and upvoted and be go.
That's right. Start
Right.
that conversation outside those channels. And you guys, Toby, you guys are putting your money where your mouth is. You get the sign out front. 4420 is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Love seeing that. Outstanding. You guys have taken a real strong, positive stance against this baloney. So it's great to see. It's great to see that kind of support from you guys and your staff. Tell us about your shop. We went through the particulars early on. How do people?
In your show.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best way you could follow along with what we do is like and subscribe on all of our social media channels. We're at Cape Gunworks and at Rapid Fire Radio, all one word. So Rapid Fire Radio is a 2A talk radio show that we do once a week. It airs every Wednesday from 4 to 6 p.m. And the first hour is a traditional radio show. And then the second hour is a long format podcast. So we have a guest every second hour and we interview them. We've had, Jared from Guns and Gadgets. Jeff's been on the show. Mike's been on the show. Yeah. We've had Mark Smith from Four Boxes Diner. Lots of other
Mark.
Mark's
He's
great.
awesome.
And lots of big 2A advocates out there in the world. I'm also have an open invitation to Moms Demand Action. Bloomberg, I'll have Grandmothers Against Gun Violence. I'll have Giffords on. Anyone who wants to talk about guns, I don't care what side of the argument you're on, I'd be happy to have you on the show. And we'll talk, guns, freedom, Second Amendment, and self-defense. And that's what we do. And of course, you can come on down to the shop and we'll show you around. You can shoot a gun, take a class, or see all the goodness that we have to offer.
It's a great place. Great place. So it's capegunworks.com.
Airport Road in Hyannis.
Yeah.
And if and if someone's not a gun owner and you're looking at this saying, hey, this might be the time to finally get my license going and maybe put something in the safe before I can't.
Do it now.
Cape Gunworks is a one-stop shop.
Yeah, big time.
Full service licensing classes all the way up to buy more than just your first gun.
Try them out.
Good stuff.
You can try them out before you buy them too.
Guns are like golf clubs. You can't just have one. Right?
That's true. A purpose-driven collection is what I always say.
Beautiful. All right, so that's where we are.
Yeah.
That's kind of it, man. Toby, thanks for hosting us today. This is great.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for making the drive up and down, whichever direction you were coming from. And we'll have to do it again.
Great, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
Mike Harris, Public Policy Director for Gun Organization League. Thanks for taking a break from the grind to join us today. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good seeing you. All right, then that's going to do it for today. Thanks for listening in. Be sure to subscribe to the Goal Podcast and check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Gun Owners Action League or on Twitter at Goal Update.
To join Goal, visit goal.org and click the Join Renew button at the top of the homepage.
If you have a topic you think we should cover, if there's something going on in your club or your town, or if you have a question for the mailbag, shoot us an email at goalpodcast@goal.org.
The Goal Podcast is a production of Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts. The views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Goal, its staff, or affiliates.